going to ask everybody to put their microphones on mute.
Please, yes.
Welcome. It's great to see so many familiar faces and several new ones as well. Welcome to Global Kinship, Exploring the Evolving Noosphere. We're a monthly webinar sponsored by Creation Spirituality Communities. My name is Penny Andrews. I joined Bob Eisenberger and Gail Ransom in presenting these monthly webinars for you. Together, we are tracking the creative intelligence of humanity as it weaves itself into a converging consciousness. While we are becoming more complex and mindful as individuals, we are increasingly influenced by and connected to others through technology, culture, arts, economics, the professions, the human heart, and a shared concern for our ecological fragility. We are quickly becoming a global community. One person who has been instrumental in shaping this community is Duane Elgin, from whom we're listening today. Today we will hear from Duane, who for over 50 years has been researching, leading, and writing about ways to respond to this precarious moment on our planet. Welcome, Duane. Welcome all. And I turn it over to you, Bob.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Penny. My task here is just to talk about technical requests, and they're very simple. For any of you who have not been with us previously, Gail already placed one of those requests. Please keep yourself on mute until we get time to, it's your turn to ask a question if you so choose. The other thing is, when it is time to ask a question, we ask you that you raise hand to get your requests in sequence. You do that by going to your Zoom toolbar, look for the reactions button, and under there you'll see the words raise hand, and that will take you to the top of the screen and put you in line so we can get everybody in order. Gail. You're muted, Gail.
Well, at least I follow my own instructions. Okay. Penny, did you have something you wanted to read? Or are you waiting? I didn't know if I had that to wait for. Okay, sorry. Okay, well then, let's get right down to it. I'm going to give you a bio of Duane, and it's buckle your seatbelts. It's going to take a while. He has so much that he's done in his 50 years. So here we go. Duane Elgin is an American researcher, author, educator, social scientist, and media activist who has been researching and advocating accessible solutions to our global crisis for over 50 years. In the early 1970s, Elgin was a senior staff member on a joint presidential congressional commission on population growth and the American future. He then worked on as a senior social scientist with the Futures Group at the Stanford Research Institute, which led to the publishing of his breakthrough book, Voluntary Simplicity. His focus on an individual's conscious choices in responding to our planetary crisis became one of his core teachings, beginning with the two nonpartisan organizations, Choosing Our Future and Bay Voice in the San Francisco area in 1981. Their mission was to give citizens a greater voice in the community by using the public airways for interactive electronic town meetings. These first interactive electric town meetings were not on Zoom. They were on the local ABC station. That's what we had back then. In 1999, Elgin and 30 other evolutionary leaders met with the Dalai Lama in Dharamsala, India, over a period of 5 days to explore new paradigms and build a sustainable and a spiritual future for humanity. In 2001, Elgin was awarded an honorary PhD for working on ecology and spiritual transformation from the California Institute of Integral Studies, which many people here have studied there as well, in San Francisco, and he is also a member of the CIIS Council of Sages. You may recognize the title of his books, The Living Universe, Where Are We, Who Are We, Where Are We Going? Voluntary Simplicity, Toward a Way of Life that is Outwardly Simple, Inwardly Rich. Awakening Earth, Exploring the Evolution of Human Culture and Consciousness. And Promise Ahead, A Vision of Hope and Action for Humanity's Future. So lastly, and now in a second edition, and also I think just right about now being published in many languages simultaneously. I think it's 6 just now, and that's on top of the ones that have already been published. Choosing Earth, Humanity's Journey of Initiation Through Breakthrough and Collapse to Mature Planetary Community. Another, I like the term a media artist. I'm really taken with that. And because Duane does books, but he also does community events, and he also does a lot of video and film. And one film that he did was supported by Roger Gibson, who's with us today. It's called Facing Adversity, Choosing Earth, Choosing Life. And this film, films are enormous undertakings. So Colleen, Duane's wife, did the kind of the most of the work on the film, but she did it off of his book and the idea. So it was a really beautiful combination of working together, I think. In fact, working together is, those of us who listen to Brian Swim, he talks about the universe being all made of relationship. So here's how this relationship went. That I knew Roger's wife from my friend Colleen, who's here. And then Roger and Brenda began to go to the retreat they're just talking about. And then they met Duane. And then they began to decide this was really, really important, as I remember Brenda telling the story. It was something important to happen. So here's this connection just happening between us already that we can appreciate. So Roger, do you mind just telling us a little bit about how this film came to be?
Sure. First of all, I want to just ask for everybody's understanding in advance. I have to leave at 4:45. I'm glad I'm able to say a few words to get us started. I've got a company function that I need to be at that's been on the books for a long time. But in any event, Duane and I met over 10 years ago. I was surprised that it was that long. I just looked it up about an hour ago before coming on the Zoom call. We were at a meditation retreat suggested by a very good mutual friend of ours, Chris Beisch. During that retreat, first time I learned all about Duane's background, which is extraordinarily interesting. The kinds of things that were just read a few minutes ago on his bio. But beyond that, sharing a room together for a week, it quickly became apparent that Duane not only had an extraordinary intellect and background, he also had an equally large heart. We became good friends, and soon after that retreat, my wife Brenda also got to know Duane and his wife Colleen. Brenda and I have had a foundation. I've had a foundation for, well, it will be 34 years ago this fall. And Brenda and I together have funded that and also look for good causes to support over time. Brenda was always interesting in our funding efforts because she didn't want to simply write big checks to large nonprofits. Regardless of what kind of work they did, she was much more interested in finding causes that she could support, that she could be more personally involved with. And so it was natural that when we got to know Duane and Colleen and got more familiar with Duane's goal to kind of bring to a culmination his life's work and tackle head on this issue of climate change. It was interesting that This was one of the issues that he foresaw 50 years ago as hitting a very critical point in the decade of the 2020s in which we find ourselves. So that tells you also something else about Duane. He's a very, very forward-looking person and has amazing prescience in terms of getting a handle as a canary in the coal mine of dangers that we'll be facing down the road. So he wanted to tackle the climate change issue with a very long-term, multiple decade perspective in mind. This would require a lot of research. He envisioned a book filled with footnotes for anybody else who would like to challenge where he was going to take the reader. He envisioned with Colleen a documentary, teaching materials to get the word out once this was all put together, and then eventually beyond that, an outreach, a global outreach effort. So Brenda and I signed up to provide funding for the early stages of this. We wanted to see him have all the time he needed to write his book, do the research, put the teaching materials together, Colleen to have what she needed by the way of the funding for her documentary. And we wanted to get it to that launch point for it to then be able to be put out into the world. He liked to describe his work as a exercise in social imagination, which I really like that phrase. But beyond that, beyond just signing up to fund their project, which Brent and I were pleased to do, I really need to say that I think Duane is a living bodhisattva. You know, a bodhisattva in Buddhist world is a being who voluntarily decides to hang out with all the trouble and be the last person to cross over to the other side once all the trouble's resolved. Duane is that person. He wakes up every day and commits himself to a bodhisattva path, engaged in beneficial action for all of humanity and for the planet. This guy is absolutely for real. And Brenda and I were both really pleased to be able to not only fund his efforts, but to kind of participate a little on the sidelines while he and Colleen did their extraordinary work. So the work is largely done, but this now introduces the next chapter, which is how do you get this work out into the world? And he is very far along in that process. But I would also like to, maybe on his behalf, because he won't do it, I would like to kind of appeal to anybody that would like to provide some additional funding for his work, if you like what you hear and think it's important, so that he can continue to broaden the reach of his work and get this message out into the world, because the world really needs it. So thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words. I think the world of Duane and his wife, Colleen, they're really extraordinary people that have done just extraordinary work for everybody. Thanks.
Roger, thank you so much, brother. Really
You're welcome,
appreciate
brother.
those fine words of support.
So if we're lucky, Duane, in our lives, our hearts start at a certain place, like in mommy and dad, right? And going out and get wider and wider and wider and wider. If we're fortunate with what happens to us. So where in the expansion of the heart did you end up noticing that it was about the earth and about choosing earth?
When and where?
How did you notice it, or was it not?
Oh, wow. Well, I grew up on a farm in the early to mid 1940s. I was on a farm in Idaho, and I started working out in the fields at 9 years old. And although that was really strenuous and demanding, it was also a place of awakening. And I felt my connection with the earth and with life, with animals, the cats, the dogs, the pigs, the cows, and all the rest, growing up on that farm. And so it was just a natural, unforced part of my life. And so it's always that grounding in the living universe and such has always gratefully been with me. So there's the origins.
That's that. I imagine what you experienced on the farm is part of what you are imagining for us when we finally become a world community. Yeah, yeah, very good, very good. Well, I wanted to ask you, and please go right ahead with anything that you want to run with, but I wanted to ask you about this voice group that you had. You had the group in California, and they went on somehow 300,000 people talk to each other on television. What a brilliant thing to do and to pull off, just to pull it off. But I see now that you have another project called Earth for the Voice for the Earth.
Yes.
Now. And so what's that concept, and how does it fit in with the one in San Francisco?
Yes. Let's see. There this let me explain back up a little bit to explain how I got here to an Earth Voice initiative.
Mhm.
And in a nutshell, I started off in college. I was going to be a doctor. I wanted to be a physician. My mother was a nurse. I wanted to follow in her footsteps in many ways and be a doctor. And but this was during the Vietnam era, and I was eventually confronted with the choice of either go off to war and kill people or stay in college and heal people. My father said, go serve your country. My mother said, serve your soul and the well-being of people. I felt profoundly divided. I've been initiated into that division into our country that still is alive. And I chose a path of healing, and the path of healing then transformed in from physical healing to social healing. And I could see we were just tearing ourselves apart as a society, as a world, and we needed social healing much more than physical healing. Now, the social healing then evolved beyond just social dynamics of the ordinary sort, if you will, to the spiritual dimension of social healing. We were getting to the place of violent conflict in this country, and it seemed to me that if we were going to heal the divisions that we had, we would need to reach higher, reach further into the psycho-spiritual dimensions of life.
Mhm.
And so that decades and more than half a century ago was a theme in my life, was how do we bring the spiritual, the material together into an integrated living whole. And there are many paths that led to this. One was I had the opportunity to work with Joseph Campbell for the better part of a year, co-authoring a book called Changing Images of Man. Who are we? What are we doing here? And I like to tell people that at one point, Campbell was asked, isn't the reason people are here in this world is to find greater meaning? Aren't people here to find more meaning in life? And Campbell surprisingly said, no, people are not here looking for meaning. What he said was people are here to looking for the direct experience of being alive, the direct experience of being alive. And I thought about this and I thought, there's a lot of wisdom there because people are not sitting around philosophizing. Often they're off high diving off the diving board. They're diving out of airplanes. They're body surfing. They are painting. They're doing all these things. They're making music. They're doing things that directly, immediately engage them with the experience of being alive. And so, what we have here then, it was more and more clear, is a society orienting people towards buying things, consuming things, the material side of life, Campbell was saying really what people are looking for is not the things, but rather the direct experience of being alive. And that can be found in relationship and in the artistry of our lives and in the good works that we do and so on. So in many ways, I saw early on that we have a society that's misdirecting itself from its uh, own sense of aliveness and enthusiasm for being alive and being here. And so to the extent that we are confronting a time of not only climate crisis, but a crisis of the entire earth, we have the sixth greatest extinction of species of plants and animals underway right now. We have shortages of fresh drinking water for 40 to 50% of the people, depending upon the place on the planet. It's way beyond a climate crisis. We have a whole systems crisis. And so to solve that crisis, we need to do more than just think about, let's say, solar panels, think about electric cars and so on. We need to move beyond thinking to love. We got to move beyond caring and for the earth by thinking about those solar panels and all the rest. That's very important. But we have to love the earth. And to love the earth, we have to love the universe. That's where we are in a universe that's welcoming, inviting, open to our love and our loving relationship within it. So, this is an extraordinary time for humanity because we are being called to step up, and it's to step up from a thoughtful relationship to life to a compassionate relationship with life, a loving relationship with life. Now, that's what moved me from the thoughts of being a physician to heal the physical body to thoughts of being an advocate and someone that would work in the world, whether it's in mass media, in activist initiatives, in an Earth Voice movement, and so on, to work in the world to awaken a higher, larger voice for humanity's future. So, there's so much, let me think for a moment.
It's okay, we're here.
So, yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No.
Here's where I've really come to and has come back around to. In the early 1970s, really a little over a half century ago, I had a remarkable opportunity. And that was to participate in the very first government research on parapsychology. And that was done at the Stanford Research Institute, where I was doing futures research. And at the same time, I was doing writing with Joseph Campbell and the Futures Group. I would, 3 days out of the week, often go over to the engineering labs at the Stanford Research Institute and participate in a wide range of parapsychology experiments. Some were receiving experiments where I was presumably receiving information from a person at a remote location. They would say, well, describe where this person is. They're sending experiments where the job was to impact an electrical device or a laser apparatus and so on, set up there in the engineering labs. And I had 3 years in a laboratory to explore the ecology of consciousness, back and forth, day after day, week after week, to explore the ecology of consciousness. And what I discovered in a very intimate and personal way is that the universe is alive. It's a living system. And many of the ideas we have about being here right now are assuming the universe is dead matter and empty space. And if it's just dead matter and empty space, well, then what do? Well, you consume it. You exploit it. Well, if it's just dead matter, let's use it up. let's consume it. Now, if on the other hand, we see we're living in a living universe, that changes the entire foundation of life. And instead of exploiting it, the impulse is to treasure it, to take care of it, to work for the well-being of the earth and the well-being of all life. And so what I was learning a half century ago was experientially, directly, embodied. I am a part of a larger aliveness. The American Indians talk about three miracles. The first miracle is that anything is here at all. The second miracle is that living things exist that know they exist. And the third miracle, that second miracle is plants and animals. The third miracle is that living beings exist that know they exist, and that's us. We know that we're here inside of this miracle that we're calling this living universe. And we're called, about half of the people on this planet roughly are being called uh, towards the aliveness, towards care, towards treasuring the life that's here and caring for it. So we're in an extraordinary time of transition as a human family. And this goes directly to the psycho-spiritual dimension of life. And that's what we're talking about here. That's what Roger and Brenda brought me in to speak about many years ago in their home. And so let me speak just for a minute about creation spirituality.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There is creation spirituality and saying, well, it's a miracle. We're here in a reality that's been created almost 14 billion years ago. That's an extraordinary miracle. Well, there's a further and deeper miracle to creation spirituality that's not often recognized. And it's that it's continuous creation spirituality that not only is the universe alive, it's a regenerative universe that's regenerating itself at every moment. And so we are participants in a dynamic flow of aliveness as a deeper source, what I call a mother aliveness, a mother universe gives birth to our universe. And in that process, there is the flow through of tremendous amounts of energy. And physicists have decided there's the equivalent of millions of atomic bombs of energy within a single cubic inch of space. How could that be? Why would there be so much energy? Well, if it's just dead matter and empty space, you don't need much energy. But if it's a living system, if the entire universe is being upheld by a deeper life force, that requires tremendous energy to bring this into existence moment by moment by moment. So then that changes the whole equation once again as why what we're doing here. We are learning to live in this living universe. It isn't we're just here to consume things and enjoy that physical part of life. It goes way deeper, way further. We're here to learn how to live in a larger aliveness. Well, why? Because who we are is way beyond this physical body. If we look at the world's wisdom traditions and creation spirituality does this, who we are is a body of light, love, music, and knowing. Just those four at least. We're a body of radiance, of light, a body of knowing, of insight, awareness. We're a body of love. We have a compassionate capacity. We are a body of knowing. We can know not only intellectually, but experientially into the world in which we live. So we're a body of light, love, music, and knowing, and that's the body that lives after we die. After the physical body dies, there's another body that's being grown, and we're growing that body right now. And the value of this life and this universe is to co-create with it the spiritual dimensions of it, and in the co-creation to grow who we are. we're growing this big soul in which we can then migrate through the aliveness of a living universe of infinite openness, infinite dimensionality. And that's really the larger journey that we're on that has really drawn me into this life of transformation. It's to say we're doing it for purposes beyond just sustainability. Here, we're doing it for awakening to the totality of where we are and where we're going. So, Gail, let me pause with that.
Okay. All right. There's a you talked a lot in one of your videos, wherever I got it, that about the science and religion coming together, science and spirituality really coming together. That's what I heard you talking about there, kind of in a different way, but then actually more expansive way than I heard you on where you were talking about this before. So it might be later you kind of evolved. But is there anything else you want to add about science and spirituality?
Well, just that it's a wonderful convergence that is beginning to happen. That's been developing slowly over decades that I've been watching this. And over the last 50 years, we've gone from just an impoverished sense of the universe as a living, spiritually infused system to now this is where the cutting edge in many respects that I see. And so science and spirituality are converging. Interest in traditional religion is plummeting at the same time that there's a rise in a larger sensibility of who are we, and rather than giving it over to, let's say, priests and others to say, well, here's who you are. Just like Joseph Campbell said, what people want is not the explanation, they want the direct experience. I want to know I'm alive. I want to feel my aliveness. I want to grow into that aliveness. And so where can we find that direct experience of being alive that has a sacred dimension to it? And that is then, I think, drawing so many people, younger people, as I have 3 sons, drawing us into the future of artistry and meeting in the more direct experience of being alive.
Oh, incredible that view, having been a minister, worked in the church, to hear what you describe is what many religions talked about, but it's certainly in a whole other context. And it gets rid of that barrier between life here and whatever happens to us later. I've never heard it explained so clearly before, or the first time I've heard somebody talk about heaven in a different way, in a
Well,
conscious.
Gail, it's from decades of inquiry into the world's wisdom traditions. It's not me, it's me saying, okay, if we bring together the wisdom of the world, what does it suggest about who we are? What does it suggest about where we're going with all of this? And what I said, what I described, that we're growing a body, a deep spiritual body, and that's our job. And creation spirituality is to create that body that we inhabit. That's our responsibility. And well, what do you mean by that? People will say, well, okay, let's look at what the world wisdom traditions have said about who we are, that we are this body of light, love, music, and knowing. And some will emphasize, well, it's radiance, you're a body of light. And others will say, well, you're a body of love. And no, we're growing our capacity for knowing in the world and this and that. But you put it all together and it all makes sense. Just like as human beings, we're not just a body, a thinking body, we're a body of feeling, a body of sensory connection as well. And all of those contribute to our growing a body of aliveness we carry then into eternity.
Speaking of creation spirituality, we have the Matthew Fox talks a lot about reinventing religion, and talks about interfaith and work, which is just mirrored about the same time when I say all the yoga studios started to pop up every place, and people were going to the yoga studios. They're talking about vibrations, and I used to say, what do you mean vibrations? And then they talk about oneness. So all this kind of merging of, it's like spiritual values that are actually in the spiritual tradition of almost every world religion and also indigenous. That there is a spiritual pattern that is naturally human. And
Yes.
this is what we go through. And Matthew has taken the words from Meister Eckhart for his four-path process of going a journey process. But so our religions may be different, but our spiritual paths and practices, often the practices, I would say, if you know music, the same interval is used for chanting and supporting spiritual experience around the world. And then you go to the pentatonic scale, and that's the next set of notes. So I see this in the evolution of what you're talking about, is the evolution of how our religions are reforming, and some people are being very clever and they're still in conversation with the culture. Some aren't. So that's part of the evolutionary movements that this brings back to me. So
just building on that, Gail, so much of what we look at right now is viewed in personal terms. I'm on a journey of personal growth and human potential movement and so on. This is now a species journey. It's no longer just an individual enterprise. We're doing this together or not at all. We all go together. And you may think, well, there's some billionaires that are going to have their places and separate from the rest of us, and they're going to hold out through the hard times ahead of climate change and species extinction. But I'm saying we all go together. And ultimately, maybe they do get to live another 10, 20 years, but ultimately we are going together. And we either rise together as a human family or we fall together. Right now, we're falling. And we need to pick ourselves up here and together move into a more compassionate and sustainable world, not just for us as humans, but for the well-being of all life, because the fabric of life is being profoundly impacted by our developmental activities. And so if we are going to let's say by the end of this century, have a habitable Earth, we need to pull together as a human family. We need to find our sense of community and collaboration and cooperation and caring as a human family. If we're going to survive as a species. This is our situation. One thing that I would say is we are hugely underestimating how much danger, how much difficulty lies ahead. In 1975, I attended a briefing at the Department of Energy in Washington, and a gentleman there said, one of the key trends that I'm seeing is CO2 in the atmosphere. He said, if this continues for another 30 or 40 years, we're in big trouble. Well, that was, we're more than that 40 years after that meeting I had in Washington, D.C. And we have known for over half a century that climate change was underway. It's nothing new here. What's finally happened is that we have then hit the ceiling of what is really permissible, that 1.5 degrees centigrade, and we are now pushing rapidly beyond it. And the problem is that if we go from 1.5 degrees centigrade up to 2, the chances of going then to 3 are increased because we're setting into motion cascading influences. We're going to pass tipping points. Those tipping points will push us further into this danger zone, and other tipping points will be passed. So once this gets underway, it's harder and harder to stop. and we're underway now. So if we're ever going to pull back and guide the evolution of our growth on this planet in a more habitable direction, it's now. And that brings me back, Gail, to where you started earlier, talking about a new voice for humanity. And I tell people say, well, look, that's just ridiculous, a new voice for humanity. That's utopian. You'll never do that. And I pull out this, my mobile phone. And I say, do you realize that as of 2018, 50% of the people on the planet have access to one of these cell phones? And that was 5 years ago. Now it's 6 years. The 50% is now 2/3. 2/3 of the people on the planet have access to a cell phone. By the end of this decade, it will be 3/4 of the people on the planet. Now, the problem of having a collective conversation of the people of the earth is not technology. We've got the technology right now. What's missing is our understanding that we have this, and the understanding that we need to transcend nation state politics. Nation states can't choose a promising future for the earth. They're hundreds of years old. They were designed for protection of the people within them. And they still have that consciousness, that culture, that psyche of protection. And protection means separation. And with separation, we're not going to come together as a people on the planet. So if we want a promising future, we have to step above nation states. Well, how do we do that? Nations aren't cooperating, but people could. People could. People could. And so I trust people, and I trust here we have the tools of communication that we need in our hands. We have the future in our hands. And so let's start using those tools. And that's where an Earth Voice movement and initiative has its juice. It says, okay, let's pick up these, these phones. Let's begin to ask ourselves as a species, let's pick up one of those cell phones. Do you consider yourself a member of the human race? Well, yeah, I'm a member of the human race. Are you a citizen of the earth? Well, yeah, I'm a citizen of the earth. Do you feel like you should have a voice in humanity? Well, yeah, I should have a voice. Do you see, on and on and on? We start rapidly, just within the few keystrokes that we could take within a 24-hour period, we redefine who we are on this earth. And it's a psycho-spiritual transformation. We are already transforming the material side. People are buying their electric cars and their solar panels and changing their diets and so on. But the spiritual dimensions of life that are vital, if we are going to come together as a species and pick up those cell phones and say, I trust you, let's do this. Let's talk together finally as a species after all these tens of thousands of years of going our separate ways. We're finally coming back together for the very first time. Let's do this. And so that's where we are right now, at a critical juncture with critical technologies at our disposal. And we are not yet awake to the urgency of the times and the opportunity of our times. And just a final comment I'll make. Historians have said there's one phrase that really describes the collapse of civilizations throughout the world over history, and it is too little and too late. The Romans saw what was happening, but it was too little and too late. The Incan Empire, the Easter Island, and so on. Again and again, they saw what was happening, and they were beginning to respond, but the response was too little and it was too late. And that could be the the last comments of the human species in our time on this earth. We knew what was happening. We knew there was dangers, but it was too little and too late, and we didn't pick up the phone. So I'm saying, let's begin an Earth Voice movement. The technology is there. What's missing is the inspiration to use it. and then to move into the psychospiritual dimensions of life and choose life as a place of caring, of compassion, of love, grow the body of light, love, music, and knowing that we are. So
Oh,
Duane,
over to you.
Duane, Gail, if I may just jump in for a second, we have a question in the chat from Mary Jo, pertaining to your last comments there, Duane. Can you share how we implement your ideas in transcending nation-state politics? We are seeing a rise once again of these tensions. Is it merely trusting people? What does that actually look like?
Wonderful question. The way we do it is we don't go to the nation states, so to speak, and ask for their help. We don't go to the United Nations. The United Nations is a place of support for this kind of initiative, but we have to step out and step up and step outside of the conversation envelope, the conversation atmosphere that's been created so far. We need to say, look, I trust people in different parts of the earth, and literally within a matter of weeks, most months, we could have an Earth Voice movement underway. What it requires is not technology, it requires leadership from trusted people around the planet. So it might be Greta Thunberg in the Scandinavian countries. It might be the Dalai Lama. I don't know who it would be. I do. I have a number of ideas for trusted leaders, but we need to have trusted leaders calling for an Earth Voice initiative. And so it can be implemented rapidly, but what's required is our personal leadership to go with the existing technological leadership that's already in our hands.
don't forget Taylor Swift. She's got a mailing list that's 1 million kids long. So,
There you go.
yeah, yeah. So, was there anybody else, Bob?
No, that's it at the moment.
Yeah, okay. I would say I think we should just take a moment here to take a rest. I know that we've been asking Duane to say a lot for us, and maybe we just sort of contemplate some of the things that have been said and think back over what he's talked about and what's really hit you as something important for you to remember. So we don't just listen and be charmed and then go have supper.
So if anyone has a question stirring, this might be a time, if you'd like, to use that raise hand feature, and we could like to ask that question directly.
Oh, please. I'd love to hear a question.
On your mind. Oh, somebody got the wrong.
Not seeing it.
Anything?
Well,
So
a couple more observations then. It seems to me that did you get a
we do
question?
have a question.
Ooh,
We do have
okay.
a question.
I'll hold on.
Mel Bricker, come on, join the conversation, Mel. You're muted, Mel.
There, I'm unmuted. Now I have to remember my question. I'm really wondering about how all this relates to the deep divisions there are in our world today, and how we get a voice that's loud enough that it can be heard. Speaking for what you're speaking for.
Yes. So a voice loud enough, or one that penetrates beneath the noise, beneath the loudness that is just all around us, and reaches into the heart and calls out our innate capacity that we already have for caring for the well-being of the earth. And I know it's there. I talk to people about, do you have a dog? Do you have cats? Do you love your cats and dogs? Well, how about bringing that same care for animals that are threatened with this mass extinction into the care for humans that are also threatened with a mass extinction? Where's our capacity, not for just a loud voice, but for a caring voice, for a voice of compassion and love? And if that's real, and people are willing to make sacrifices on behalf of a world of compassion and care for the well-being of life, boy, do we have a future for us. And if we don't, we have just a dismal alternative. So I think it's the authenticity that people bring of they really mean it. And if one person says that, and a few, but what if the people around the earth are expressing their care for the earth, they treasure the well-being of life on the earth, and are willing to work for the earth at that point? And once again, I'm saying this could develop in a matter of weeks to months. It's simply a matter of saying, let's do this and find out. Let's ask these questions of ourselves. I am confident that what we're going to find is that we're just regular folks here. We're just human beings around the planet. And we have so much in common, and we mean well for the well-being of the earth. And so we can do this. That's the part of my frustration with this is knowing this is doable. But we are advertising ourselves in many respects into a future that's going to be very hard to turn from, and we could hit an evolutionary wall very soon. And that is a great concern I have. And my sense is within 20 years, we will be in profound crisis as a species, as a planet, and will have gone past tipping points, and we will not be able to turn back in a way that we can right now. So there's urgency. It isn't just kind of an interesting idea. We need to talk. And if we're under tremendous stress, which we are, what do? Well, we fight. We got a choice here. We either talk or we fight. And right now we're fighting. So let's talk, for heaven's sakes, and let's find our way into a new future.
Thank you, Duane. We have Barbara Schwarzbach has her hand up here, and we also have several more questions in the chat if we have time for some of those.
Okay, great.
Hi there. Well, thank you. It's really an honor to be on this call. I feel like the words you speak are very much in my heart. And when they ask for questions, I wrote in the chat, I'm too stunned hearing it again and again and the depth that you talk about it to have a question. But what my question is, I'm a lifelong learner, and I've done workshops with you with creation spirituality, with service space. I think there is a lot of people that are trying to do what you're doing, but they're not all connecting up in a bigger voice together. And I mean, I always think about if I could put 10 people at a table, you would be one of them, Service Space would be one, Carrie Newcomer, Parker Palmer, Ariel Berger. There's so many people working for the good, but they're all doing it in different places. And so I'm like someone that is like, participating in everything a little bit, but it's not moving the whole. And I hear what you're saying. I think even like Valerie Love, or Valerie Carr, who is, does a lot on the racism and love. And, there's a lot of people out there doing movements, but they're not hooked up.
That's right.
Like Third Act, and there's just so many things. And my question is, how does one try to hook and weave together all the brilliant people, like for one conference, to like help? I mean, we've got to address what's going to happen in this election.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Part of growing up on a farm, I grew out there in the fields at 9 years old and such. Virtually everyone I worked with was illiterate. They couldn't read, they'd sign their checks with an X at the end of the week and so on. And they were some of the finest people I've ever been with. Literacy was not the issue. Their wisdom came from a connection with the land, with the earth, with other people, with animals, and so on and so on. Now, here's what I'm suggesting. There are people like Parker Palmer and all these other wonderful folks. What we need to do is to get down to the regular folks. And I consider myself one of just the regular folks, a farm kid, and if we have an earth voice that says, you feel like you're a part of this planet, yes, you treasure the life and well-being of earth, of life on this planet. Yes, I do. Now, I am confident that if we had the simplicity of this earth voice system and the simplicity of asking basic questions like that, we would find that we're way wiser than we perhaps thought.
Oh, no, I think they are asking those questions
Okay.
in my experience. And I think, again, they each have good followings, but they're all working in different areas that are
That's
all
right.
about sustaining the earth and loving your community and giving back and trying to leave a lighter trail and all that. So
Yeah.
I do feel like their voices are strong voices that are affecting it, but
Yes.
they come to care for the earth through slightly different voices.
Right. So we need to find ways to come together.
Yeah.
As what I'm hearing, and that's what I'm saying. And I'm saying all of us need to come together, not just the recognized, let's say, leaders, but all of us are leaders in our own right. I feel we all want to be empowered to be a participant in a better world that works for all of us, or most people want that. So the question is how to do that. And to realize the problem is not technology. I was speaking with a Google executive about this, and I said, look, what we need is a way for all of us to come together around this earth and to use the technologies that are there so we can communicate together. And I was earnest, and I expressed that. And he just sat there and looking at me. And he kind of shook his head and he said, you don't really understand, do you? And I, what? You don't understand? And he said, he picked up his cell phone and he said, what you want has already been created. We already created it. Anytime you pick up a cell phone and go onto the internet, you're going onto the global internet. And you might need to translate between different languages and such, but you're talking to the world. And if there are any barriers, they're not barriers of technology, there are barriers of society, of governance, and so on. And so we can do this. We could do this. The folks on this call, we could come together and we could accelerate this. And so the work that we've been doing, choosing Earth, well, we've been taking the earth for granted. We need to be conscious and active in choosing the earth that we inhabit. Well, how do we do that? How do we just choose earth? We've been organizing to do that. Well, how? Well, Earth Voice. Earth Voice. It's simple as that. We give voice to the people of the earth through the technologies that the strong majority already have access to. So it's a revolution waiting to happen. It's just sitting here waiting to happen. It needs to happen. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to manifest. We're working on that as an organization, and I'm talking with people around the planet about using the tools of the internet to come together to have a voice for all of us. But it just has to keep growing and accumulating until people say, yeah, well, let's give it a go. Let's give this a try. And so we're in that dynamic, that process right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Duane. We do also have some questions in the chat. Jane Krzyzanowski, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, says, please say more about the natural path of transformation and the common practices that support it, which you mentioned earlier.
I'll say one thing. There's obviously so much that can be said. There's a strong emphasis on mindfulness in today's world. And I've been a practitioner of mindfulness over decades. And what I would suggest is that there may be other practices that might be more impactful. And mindfulness, just think about it for a minute, is mind, first of all, and then fullness. And the idea is how to bring fullness of mind into your life. Well, that's in many ways thinking. Your mind is where we think, okay, I'm going to really bring fullness of thought and thinking into my life. Oh, they're saying, stop thinking. No, it's mindfulness. So I'm in conflict with myself. See what I'm saying? And there are other practices that say, well, look, can you just presence yourself? What happens if you just sit down, don't even think about it, and just settle into yourself? You're presencing yourself. You feel, oh man, I feel the weight of my body here, and the sensation of being here, my presence. I feel my aliveness. I'm just sitting here. I'm feeling my aliveness. I'm feeling I know this. That I'm having this, and I feel real compassion and love for life. You see what I'm saying? Saying instead of I'm going to be something, I claim what I already am. I already am a being with a capacity for presencing myself. When I go into, let's say, a room, within seconds, people can tell whether or not my presencing of myself is embodied or if it's just a kind of thought that people can tell. Are you into kind of an analytical thinking mind? Are you into more a receptive, compassionate mind? See what I'm saying? So if we move from mindfulness into embodiedness, what we're going to be moving into is the fullness of who we are. And that's the being that we take from this world when we die. We take the body of light, love, music, and knowing, all invisible. All invisible. Light is love, music, and knowing. They have their visible aspect, but they're essentially non-material. And we can bring those non-material qualities through presencing ourselves into our everyday lives. And that in turn is a powerful vehicle into social life and into the spiritual life as well.
Mm-hmm. There's Bill Lewis asks us, there has been so much twisted and false news which has created major trust of any news.
Yes.
How can we break through the distrust of information and share reality?
That is a really, really key question, because as we think collectively, so we become. And if we are being manipulated by artificial intelligence and fake news and all the rest, I don't see a way out of this other than through our own devices, our own means. If we can start just speaking person to person directly into that camera, they can see, okay, I see you. And there are people from around the earth that are contributing to these conversations. It's going to be really what Joseph Campbell said. He said, look, people want the direct experience. You're getting the direct experience of aliveness right here, right now. And you can say, I wonder if I trust this. And rightfully so, but nonetheless, you're getting you're getting aliveness itself, and that's what people need. They want to build trust so they can move beyond the sort of manipulations that we've built into nation-state economics and politics, and transcend that in a larger sense of communion, community, and consciousness. So we're learning our way into that new world.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. There are several comments piling up that echo what I think you're saying there. Janet Lee Meisinger comments that she spends 6 to 8 hours a day finding the real news, compiling it, and sending it out to her lists.
Right.
Margie Abbott comments, there are so many ways. The Guardian usually tells the truth.
Yes.
Deep adaptation groups all over the world are a voice.
Yes.
And Meg Wheatley's work in restoring sanity and building
Yes.
islands of sanity is contributing, as well as Joanna Macy's.
Yes.
And she adds to that, I think we are beyond moving the whole. I call on the Hopi prophecy, small groups everywhere.
Yes.
And I think just there are a couple of things connected there. As I was thinking as you were speaking tonight, this afternoon, that there are so many commonly connected groups springing up globally that have nothing to do with the state governments that you're referring to. And that if they find those roots spread around the planet, that we can perhaps elevate those actions, those practices, those goals on a global basis, kind of sidestepping statehood, state governments.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's so important. So let me emphasize this: community, grounding what is happening now in community. I live in a co-housing community. There are about 65 people living together in like a little village, if you will. But we have a garden, we have meals together 3 days a week, and so on. So we work together as a community. We have a consciousness as a community. And so what you're speaking about is the need for grounding at a very personal, local level, so where we can see one another face to face, we can build those relationships face to face, but then we can grow out from that. We can reach out to other communities around the earth, and we can have a similar level of trust and connection face to face through the internet media and such, and build from there. So I feel grounding in community is so important to go along with the rise in spirituality and reaching out to a higher level of possibility, and then grounding it there in community. And that then gives us the strength to really move into this new world.
I'm seeing so many comments about other groups, organizations, initiatives that are supporting this work. So everyone on this call might want to check your chat box, and just maybe you'll find some inspiration and some possibilities for yourself or for others you know.
I'm sure. Would someone be so kind as to make a copy of the chat and send it to me? So
I'll be happy to do that.
Great. Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Um,
So we're a
so
little, yeah.
yeah, we're about 10 to 9 after. Gail, did you have another question or something you wanted to add here?
I did a minute ago. The sense of, I wanted to ask you, you had a group of, and then we'll probably do simple gifts after that. But I think that you had a number of people that was going to 50%, and I thought you were saying that the 50% of the people of the earth are now participating in some way in this other understanding of what it means to be alive, and sharing compassion and sharing love. Do you feel that we're at 50%?
That is from my personal polling of people. This is a wonderful question. Let me suggest this to folks. Often, whether it's having dinner with people or just having a casual conversation and such, I will just ask, well, hey, is it dead or alive? People look at me. What do you mean, dead or alive? I say, well, is the universe dead or alive? What do you mean, is it dead or alive? And there will be some people around the circle. Let's say there are 10 people, half of them would be guys probably. And they say, well, of course it's dead. It's just dead matter and empty space. Exploit it. And then there will be others that say, I can't believe you're saying that. Of course it's alive. How can you say it's dead? The beauty, all, it's alive. And this is so all you had to do is ask that one question: is it dead or alive? And people instinctively have a feeling for the nature of the world in which they live and how they're going to relate to it. And it is a wake up for people that think, oh, well, everyone assumes it's alive. No, they don't. It's a wake up for those that say, well, everyone knows it's just dead matter. And no, they don't. So what we are doing right now is entering into a learning time for humanity, when we really say what's in our hearts and what's in our life experience of it's either dead or alive. And depending upon that question and the answer, we choose our pathway into the future. So I can't tell you what 8 billion people on the planet, what they deeply feel, but I have done polling around the planet as wherever I go to ask these kinds of questions. And let me add one more question. Question is this: when you look at the whole human family and our behavior, are we behaving like toddlers? Are we behaving like teenagers or adults or even elders? I give people 4 choices: toddlers, teenagers, adults, or elders. Overwhelmingly, 3/4 of any group I've spoken with around the planet says we're behaving like teenagers. We're behaving like adolescents. And I'll ask, well, can we grow up? Well, yeah, we could grow up. I've done it. We can. People will say, well, okay, what's going to take for us to take responsibility for the well-being of the earth, to look beyond our own personal lives and say, I'm going to look out for the well-being of the whole? Well, I've done that in my personal life. Maybe I could do it in my social life, my life with the earth. So in other words, we're just in a learning journey here. We haven't even quite asked ourselves these critical questions. But once we do, we can begin the process of maturation and building this new world.
It reminds me of Margaret Mead, who had that quote about making change, and the only people who ever really made change in the world was a small group. There's something about the mathematics of spiritual mathematics of what it takes to change, make a change like this. Does it take 50%? Does it take 10%? And how much energy
Yeah,
we need for it to happen?
I think we already have the critical mass on the earth of 10, 20%, something like that, that sees really what we see here in terms of sustainability. It isn't sustainable, but there is a spiritual dimension to life that's not being tapped, brought into the aliveness that we bring here on the earth. I think people recognize these are transition times, and we either step up or we fall back. And it's time to really reach deep, step high, reach out, and to call forth a new future for the people of the earth. So we have the critical mass already. What we need is a way to identify that critical mass and to validate that there is a critical mass. And we could say, let's say, with the Earth Voice, hey, there's a critical mass here that wants a new future, and here it is. We'll go do the survey again and again. No, it's real. We want a sustainable, livable Earth. And we're ready to dive in and do our work on behalf of that. And we need to know that that's where we want to be going. Now, my feeling is we could do that swiftly. And I think you've really gotten that. I believe that this is a revolution waiting to happen. It's waiting to be surfaced. it's already happened. It needs to be brought out, and so we can begin working to forward that.
Duane, I wonder if I might slip in one more question
Sure.
as we approach the end of our time.
Yeah.
I know that one of the threads through much of your work has been, and you referenced it briefly earlier, but I'd like to hear some more if we could, about the idea of simplicity
Sure.
and its role and its importance in moving forward.
You know, it's simplicity is actually very complex. Simplicity. Uh, Simplicity, so many people say, well, look, it's just the things that I buy and the things that I consume and so on. And I say, look, it's about everything in life. Um, it is not only about things, it's also about how we relate to each other. What is the simplicity of communication that actually connects, that actually communicates? It isn't the flowery communication necessarily, it's the authentic communication. So people want authenticity, and this takes us back to Joseph Campbell, and what people want is the direct experience of being alive. So what people want is not more stuff to build to occupy my life. They want, in many respects, to take it down to where it is the immediacy of my life with my dog and my cat. I'm out in the garden, and I'm growing flowers, and I'm growing food. I'm in the house, I'm playing the piano, I'm having a direct experience of life. So it's the simplicity of these things that bring us alive that are the most precious, the most valuable. And if we could begin to reorient our lives in all of every aspect and say, well, what is the real preciousness here that we truly, truly value and that we want to give more power to in our lives? What we're going to find is that simplicity cuts through the complex and in a way, the irrelevant to reveal what matters to us. So simplicity is a vehicle to say, well, really, what matters? What do you care about? Let's focus on the preciousness of life. And so that is a cutting edge through the complexity of the world that we're creating right now to a world that serves us, that's manageable, and that awakens actually the spiritual dimensions of life, because that's where spirit lies. It's in the authenticity of our relationship with all these other areas.
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
What,
Thank you.
what a great way to end. Thank you so much, Duane, for coming and inspiring us and giving us your time and your thoughts, and for you doing this work through your life. You know, that you had that vision and you had that energy, and then you had the capabilities to take where you started and bring you to this moment where you've inspired and changed the minds of so many people and directed us toward a better world.
Thank you, Gail. I do want to add my the website for Choosing Earth. It's just choosingearth.org, choosingearth.org. And I hope you'll explore it. And what we're doing right now, just to finish, we're sending copies of this book, the Choosing Earth book.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you're bringing that up. I should.
Choosing Earth book. This book, it's got it backwards because of but it says Choosing Earth. And this book has now been translated into 6 languages. More are coming, and it will be accessible to at least 2/3 of the people on the planet. And we're sending it out to people along with a film and a study guide for free. And the electronic version of the book, the film, and the study guide are all free, no strings attached in any way. And if you're a citizen of the earth, you own a copy. And you'll get it, if you want it, you can have a copy. Just go on to choosingearth.org, and there it is. You can get a copy instantly. So get a copy of the book, take a look at other resources there, and join the journey to a new earth.
There's also if a lot of YouTube of and the film of ways that you can access all that. He has so much material out this media activist that just type in the word Duane Elgin and see how much comes up. And I hope you spend some time with it.
Great.
So, Bob.
Excellent. So we thought it would be appropriate. We'd like to mix things up with other media as well, and other ways to connect with ourselves and with each other. And so we thought this would be a fun time to play an old tune that is a message that still resonates today.
Hmm.
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we get to the place that's right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shall not be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we get to the place that's right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shall not be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we get to the place that's right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us. And as you know, it'll be out and available for you probably by tomorrow on our
Great.
website.
Great.
Absolutely.
So I wish you all a wonderful life and life as light, love, music, and knowing. Blessings to all. Time for me to go.
Oh, let's all do our traditional unmute and say goodbye and thank you.
All right.
Everybody together.
Thanks so much, Duane.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You're good.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.
Bye.